William Hall. I am here with ASUN Commissioner Jeff Bacon. Jeff, let's talk about the elephant in the room, so to speak. I mean, we're about a month away from some news that came out that's kind of groundbreaking in college athletics. This word's being thrown around, consortium. What is that? What is it?
Consortium, alliance.
Yeah, a strategic alliance. The strategic alliance that we have, the ASUN and the WAC coming together, the UAC's in the mix.
Yeah.
Just can you break this down for me and anybody else who's just curious about what is this thing that's going on between these two conferences?
Well, I hope it's not an elephant in the room anymore, although I appreciate the comment. I hope the elephant is way out of the room at this point, running around. Everybody's well aware of it. But you know what we've done is we've really constructed an advanced, forward-thinking model for Division I college athletics at our level by partnering with another conference to form what we have called a strategic alliance, and I think that's really representative of what it is. But what it really means is we've taken two conferences and we have built what I would call parent organization, or consortium is a great word to describe it, because if you look up the definition of consortium, that's really what we're doing. We're taking two conferences that otherwise can't do certain things, but by bringing them together can. Mm-hmm. And that's really the ultimate mission here. And we're doing that by forming an umbrella organization that will provide support services for both conferences. We will be able to compile our costs into one pool, if you will, and go out into the market, and we think we're going to save a bunch of money by being more efficient. You know, we've got two conferences right now that stand on their own independent islands and are spending a lot of money in the same ways. Mm. And instead of looking at each other and saying, how can we work together to reduce some of these costs, we're just going to keep spending these dollars. That's insanity. And that's what we've been doing for a long time. Well, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to take two conferences, put them together under the structural umbrella that's going to say, on behalf of both conferences, we're now going to spend less money. We're going to consolidate staff. We're going to consolidate infrastructure, those types of things to bring down and reduce our operational costs, which we just have to do as a business entity as we move forward. So we're going to save a bunch of money by working together under one consortium organization that will, on behalf of two conferences, operate in a lot of ways. We're also going to, we think, make a lot of money, or at least more money, because again, just like we have been out in the marketplace trying to sell multimedia rights and media rights and sponsorships and partnerships and whatever else we might be doing in that space, we've been doing it independently as small organizations. Well, we're going to pull those together. And again, the consortium, our holding company, if you will allow us to mechanize that and really go out in the market and do that. So we're not just talking about taking two media rights out to market. We are actually doing it as we speak. And I believe that's the first time that's ever been done in Division I college athletics. So we're going to save a bunch of money by working together formally. We're going to hopefully make more money and open up and unlock new revenue streams by working together formally. And then the other thing that consortium is going to do for us, it's going to allow us to give our coaches and our institutions games on their schedules. And not just games on their schedules, but home games on their schedules. And that's getting really hard to do, right? I mean, you know this. You manage a lot of basketball for us here in the league. And our coaches spend, I don't know how much of their time trying to go out and just get games on their schedule. And it's harder to do, especially if you're good. Right. You know, if you're good at our level, it gets, no one wants to play you anymore. Yeah. So, what we now have is two conferences, again, conjoined together under this consortium that we control all scheduling. Mm-hmm. And so, each conference is going to have their own independent conference schedule, just like we do now. They have their own championships, all those things. They're still, two distinct conferences. But from a scheduling perspective, we as a consortium are going to say, we're going to give you your regular season schedule, and then guess what? Y'all are going to play each other. And we're going to put games on your campuses. We're going to put good games on your campuses. We're going to put rivalry games on your campuses. We're going to get you to the places in the Southeast that you want to be for recruiting, those types of things. So I think it's save money, it's make money, and it's getting games for people. And that's what that consortium or this strategic alliance in a very formalized capacity is going to do.
So obviously, something of this magnitude, as you've already said, is historic. D1 college athletics hasn't been done. We're kind of charting a new course, so to speak. But obviously, something like this doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen with just you just deciding to wake up one morning and do something like this. So how does this come about? Like, how do we get to the point where we're at right now?
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of things. It takes, number one, I think a lot of people that collectively understand we have to do something different. We just do. We continue to, to do the same things over and over again. We continue to try to find the same ways to save money, the same ways to increase revenues. We know what the outcomes are at the end of that. We continue to try to independently go out and figure out ways or talk to other conferences about partnering and scheduling. And fortunately, we've got a great partner in the SoCon in the men's basketball world, but that's really hard. And so we keep doing it over and over again.
Yeah.
And our finances aren't dramatically changing. It's getting harder and harder. Our campus's finances aren't dramatically changing. It's getting harder and harder. We got hit with a house settlement. We're losing revenue. Now we've got to feed the system of NIL, so we're now having to spend more money. Well, where's this money coming from? So we got to do something different. We're not a sustainable enterprise, the way we're running right now. And our folks recognize that. And so I think it starts with people that understand that and that are also willing to openly think of new ways to conduct that business. It's one thing to recognize you got a problem. It's another to be willing to talk about how to solve it. So huge credit to 15 presidents and 15 athletic directors, because that's what we're talking about. I mean, I don't know about you, man, but I have a hard time getting my kids to agree on what to have for dinner, right? But we've got 30 people that really understand that we've got to think and act and look a little bit differently. So it starts with the people who are just phenomenal. And then it also requires a lot of things to come together at the same time to make it even feasible. We had to have a partner in the Western Athletic Conference willing to think and act the same way, which they are. We had to have that partnership built and that level of trust built with those presidents, which we do by virtue of our football relationship that we've had for the last several years. You had to have, frankly, a conference in the Western Athletic Conference that was having some membership trouble and really, really spurred and encouraged to go out and think and look a little bit differently. And so you had to have this confluence of people at the right time and in the right place, other events at the right time and in the right place, and this overall recognition that there's a better way to do what we're doing. And it's something that we all talk about all the time in our industry. I think you're starting to finally see, not just us. I mean, I think what we're doing from a Division I conference standpoint is unprecedented, but I think you're seeing other people think and act differently too. What Kentucky is doing, forming an LLC to manage their athletic department, is a good example of that. And there's many others starting to think and act a little bit differently. And so it took a lot. It took a lot of people. It took a lot of things. It took 6 or 7 months of really digging in and having some difficult or interesting conversations, but somehow we landed the plane.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about what this is, how we got here. I guess my next question is why? What's the benefit? We've got obviously, as you mentioned, there are a lot of athletic departments that are impacted by this. A lot of fan bases, a lot of student athletes. Why is this the thing to do right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the best question, right? The why. And I mentioned a little bit of it that I'll circle back to, but I think as you come out of a period of time in college athletics, I mean, COVID is now way in the past. That's how far we've come and how much has changed. And the house settlement, really, really encouraged people to think and act differently and recognize that the legal world around us is presenting these challenges that may be insurmountable if we don't start to act different. So I think the house settlement, in an interesting way, really helped change people's thought process and recognize that, we've got to do something different because these lawsuits aren't ending, the money's not increasing, the legal liabilities are growing, et cetera. I mean, we're still talking about issues like employment, and we're talking about antitrust exemptions, and eligibility for student athletes is a hot topic right now. So the environment around us changing, I think necessitates us to change with it or ahead of it. So that's part of the why, the environment there. NIL is another obviously big part of that environmental change that we're going through, right? And not only as an enterprise in collegiate athletics, but as a society in whole, right? I mean, you've got a president who's now entrenched in the conversation about NIL and what to do about that and how to think about college athletics. So I think those two things combined to help encourage people to recognize we've got to do something different. And then when you really think about the why of what we're building in particular, I mentioned the big whys, right? It's saving money, it's making more money, and it's getting games. But there's a lot of other ancillary benefit, to what we're providing. One, we can take on more institutions into this umbrella. We've built our own standalone entity that will survive or is capable of surviving anything that comes at us. I don't like to play doomsday scenarios much, but as a commissioner, you find yourself doing it on occasion. If the world changes in a way that we're not expecting, or if Division I looks drastically different coming out of what's going to be a new governance structure for Division I now, we don't know what that's. We know what the structure is going to look like.
Yeah.
We don't know what the impact's going to be. And so we've kind of built our own house that we can live in. And I've got 15 institutions now working together in that same house. And that allows us to control a heck of a lot of things. Versus if the world fell apart tomorrow, and we haven't built this house, all of us are scrambling around trying to figure out how to build a house.
Right.
We've already done that. So I think it situates people from a strength and security standpoint. Where our presidents can feel like, hey, this is a situation for my athletics department that is strong, that is solid, that has growth capability built into it. Because other conferences could come do the same thing we're doing with us or separately.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't proprietary idea here.
Yeah.
So we could take on other conferences into the consortium, right? Or other conferences could look at what we're doing and choose to form their own regionalized consortiums that make sense for them. And for our presidents in particular, for them to have the ability to say, wow, I've situated my athletic department in a place where I can go back to being a president a little bit and worry a little bit less about where my athletic program is going to compete every year in a world that's changing all the time. That's a huge sense of relief to them and something they've been striving for, forever. And so building that own house, providing that structure, that stability, that strength, that ability to grow, that ability to ebb and flow with whatever does come at us in Division I or in college athletics in the future, we can build our own rules, right? We can build our own eligibility rules, our own recruiting rules. We can run our own championships. We can do all these things collectively that if and when the world changes, we're better positioned to manage. So I mentioned the primary reasons, but I think the backbone to it is the strength, the stability, and the ability to grow.
Yeah. Speaking of growing, where does expansion fall in these plans of, like you said, the doomsday kind of, if things go a different way, but obviously moving and shaking, we know that things are going to split. We've got 7 schools over here, 8 over here. What does that mean forward as far as opportunities for expansion for either conference?
Yeah, and just to reset it from the start, what we've done so that folks understand, the Western Athletic Conference, as we look towards the 26-27 season, was going to be down to 3 institutions, 3 members. And those are, UT Arlington, Tarleton State, and Abilene Christian. What we've done in the consortium or the alliance is our 5 football playing members will move to the Western Athletic Conference, and we will rebrand it as the United Athletic Conference. And I think that's for obvious reason, right? The rebrand. I mean, we're not facing very west when Eastern Kentucky's in the league anymore. And it's a football brand that we've utilized for the last couple of years really successfully. So most of those schools outside of Arlington are already familiarized and used to using that brand. So the United Athletic Conference, which will be the former WAC, and will kick off in 26, will consist of 8 schools as we sit here today, 7 of which play football. On the other side, the Atlantic Sun Conference will consist of 7 schools, none of which play scholarship level football. Stetson certainly participates in the Pioneer League in football, but otherwise those 7 schools are what most people might refer to as basketball-centric type of schools, not playing scholarship football. So you've got 8 on one side, 7 on the other. To be honest with you, we could walk into 26 with that and be perfectly fine. I think part of the benefit here for our schools is we're not talking about a 15 or 16 member league with 1 AQ at the end of the rainbow. That's not a great recipe for coaches and student athletes in particular. So there's really nothing wrong with walking in with 7 and 8. I think in a normal environment, independent conferences might feel like I've only got 7 schools or 8 schools. I'm operating at or around the minimum number to operate as a conference, which is 7. And that would obviously cause some concern or consternation. But when we're working together, William, in one organization, supporting 2 conferences, there's really not that level of consternation that there might otherwise be, because we've got a lot of maneuverability built into the system, which is really unique. So we could walk in as we are. Now, having said that, I don't think we really want to. I think what our preference would be to grow a little bit. And so right now we are certainly open to growth. I don't know that I would characterize it as in need of growth, but we're certainly interested in opportunities to build on the foundation of what's already there. So, if an institution were to call us up and say, hey, we really like what we're doing and we're interested in learning more and we think a lot the same way, that would be interesting to take a look at. But those are the kind of partners that we want. When you've built something, as I mentioned at the beginning, really based off of the belief and vision of people, you don't want to start diluting that belief and vision, right? So if we were to grow, we really want to be mindful of bringing in folks institutionally that have that same type of vision and willingness and understanding of what we're building, right? Yeah. We want to keep the momentum going, in other words. And so that's what we're looking for. That's what we're open to and interested in. We've got a lot of, there's obviously reports out there. Some are, how reports are. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
I'm not going to speak to particular schools, obviously, but we've had reach out. We've had a lot of folks that are interested and curious of what we're doing in a lot of different ways. And some people just want to learn more about it and understand it, and that's great. And some people are maybe a little more beyond that and interested in potentially being a part of that, and that's also great. And that's something we're evaluating right now. So I don't know that will grow. I don't know how quickly we will grow. I don't know if we'll grow. But we are certainly taking a look at it and open to it and trying to make sure that we build something cohesive. You talk about the games piece in particular. If we're trying to build an infrastructure, which we are, where at least conceptually, I told a basketball coach this a couple of weeks ago in our league. I said, if we really wanted to, there's 32 games now in the basketball season. I can get you 32 games. Right? I've got enough inventory in terms of schools and members and geography that I can get you 32 games right now. And that's pretty unique. Now, I'm not saying that's the right thing or those are the games you may want. Yeah. There's obviously other priorities. But we're trying to build an infrastructure that we can say that. Again, we talk about being stable and secure for the future. If we have enough teams and or conferences participating in this consortium, we have the ability to control scheduling and get really good high quality games. So that's something that's just a little bit deeper dive, but something that we're looking at when we think about expansion and growth. Hey, we want to get good games in our gyms. We want to get good games in our fields and on our courts. All those things, and good competition. So that's a big part of our concern moving forward, because we want to continue to be great partners in Division I with all of our Division I peers and friends and neighbors. And we fully intend on that, but we also want to be cognizant of really building our own house that we can control from a financial standpoint, from a scheduling standpoint, and if we ever have to, from a rules and regulation standpoint.
Yeah. Earlier this year, on the ASUN side of things, we announced we're doing a basketball tournament, 2 basketball tournaments, men's and women's, here in Jacksonville. What does this alliance how does that impact those tournaments?
Well, I'm going to bounce around on that, man. So if you want to course correct me, feel free. So it doesn't directly impact the basketball tournament in Jacksonville for the Atlantic Sun Conference. That will continue. It obviously impacts potentially who the teams are that are coming down to Jacksonville, and then could depending on where we are with membership, if we're at 7 members, it impacts the bracket. But the tournament's in Jacksonville, and those schools that are participating in the Atlantic Sun will go there. The United Athletic Conference, or the former WAC, or soon to be former WAC, however we want to refer to them at the moment, they currently have their basketball tournament in Las Vegas. This is last year, their agreement there. They do have an extension opportunity that we're taking a look at. But we're going to evaluate that tournament and its future, and where the best place is for the UAC and for that basketball league. It might be in Vegas still. It might be somewhere in the UAC footprint. It might be somewhere else, but we'll take a look at that. So it'll impact that one in the immediate future more than Jacksonville. But what it does for us is it opens up all these unique opportunities. I mean, we just had a conversation recently internally about the idea that now or in the future you could package the tournaments together. Maybe there's a venue somewhere, and I don't know if there is, but maybe there's a venue somewhere that wants 2 straight weeks of basketball in their community, right? Well, we now have that.
Yeah.
So if there's a community or a venue out there that is trying to get heads and beds, as they say, for 2 straight weeks in March, we have that asset at our fingertips, because right now the ASUN tournament is the first week of March. The UAC is the second week of March. So that's 2 men's basketball tournaments and 2 women's basketball tournaments in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So now, will that play out as an asset as we move forward? We'll see. We're gonna be able to find out, right?
Yeah.
You and me could sit here and talk about that. That'd be cool if we had 2 basketball tournaments. I wonder what that would look like. I wonder if that would increase our value. I wonder if there's a city that would be interested in that. We can go find out.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be really exciting to see what we can do with that tournament in the future. And another thing we can do now, because of the assets we have and having 2 conferences working together, we'll look at all kinds of things. What about an in-season tournament? What about a crossover tournament between the 2 leagues? What about what about an MTE? We can create, control, and run our own MTE if we want to do something like that. So our ability to get really thoughtful and creative from a tournament perspective, from a basketball scheduling perspective, and from a value proposition perspective, right? Maybe an in-season tournament not only adds something great for our schools and our student athletes and the consortium in its entirety, but maybe there's a value proposition to that. Maybe sponsors are interested in that. Maybe television is interested in that, So we can create cool opportunities for folks that also find ways to, as I mentioned a little while ago, unlock new revenue streams that we can't do ourselves. So the basketball conversations and our opportunities in that space in general, tournament, regular season, and value proposition, are just out the window. Are just
It's all exciting.
Unlimited.
So, what's next?
Yeah, so we are charging towards 2026. It'll be the first year that the Alliance really takes formalized shape. So a ton of work to do between now and then. Our staffs and you and all the folks in this office and at the WAC are working hard on identifying all the areas that we need to come together and discuss and figure out. I think the regular fan or the parent or the student athlete would be stunned to see the list, as you all have seen or will see, of things we really need to work through, from big things like championships and scheduling, but down to how are we going to manage officiating moving forward? We probably have some value there that we can create. How are we going to manage our partnerships and negotiations and current contracts? Again, some opportunities there. How are we going to manage our multimedia rights, our media rights? What are we going to do with our Hall of Fames, right? All the details. We got awards and merchandising and those types of things that we've really got to go back to and take a look at. So that's well underway. We're also continuing to modify and build the actual infrastructure itself of the consortium or the entity that will manage the 2 conferences, and making sure we have our ducks in a row in that space in particular, so that the the holding company, I know I keep using a bunch of different words to describe the same thing, and that's partially because we're still trying to stay fluid in how we design this consortium or this holding company or this entity that will support both conferences, because there's a lot of ways you can go with that. There's certain things we know we want to do and provide, but we also want to be open to being a little more business-like moving forward. So what if we want to start a foundation in the future, which is something we're really considering? Well, we want to make sure we structure this in a way to support a foundation arm or extension of what we're doing. What if we want to take on capital investment? Let's make sure we're structured to take on capital investment in a way that makes sense. What if we want to start our own ventures property, or our own media company, or make up anything you want to make up? How do we make sure that we build the business structure to be able to support and grow in those spaces? So we're not just managing two conferences, which we are from a day-to-day perspective, but we're really built to be thinking about what's next and how do we grow this entire entity in a way that makes sense for us in our schools. So we're spending a lot of time on that. When we're finished with that, if we call this a consortium, or if we call it an alliance, or if we call it something else, I wouldn't be surprised. I think that we're marching towards that day where we will come out to the public and probably bring some clarity and definition to what the entity is that's organizing both of these conferences moving forward. But we want to make sure we do it in a way that aligns with our long-term goals as well. So a lot of detail work to be done to bring it together. A lot of creative thought happening about what we can do in those creative spaces. And then a lot of construct work in terms of making sure we build a business entity that really is truly a business entity, in the sense that it can maneuver and operate in the ways we need it to maneuver and operate.
Well, this is great. It's exciting.
Is it enough? Is it a lot?
Just a little bit. Obviously, a lot of steps have been taken already. A lot more steps to come. A lot more news to come. But we're gonna be locked in, and I appreciate you taking some time to break some things down for us. And we're gonna stay tuned to what's next.
Yeah, thanks, and I appreciate the conversation. And what I would just leave people with is, I think for our fans in particular, you're going to see and feel a lot of the same things that you see and feel now. Two independent conferences that are going to continue to act as two independent conferences for all intents and purposes for our student athletes and fans. But we're going to build a structure behind it that's going to be able to amplify both of them. And so that's what's exciting. And I think our fans and our parents and our student athletes and our coaches, they're not going to necessarily see all that right away. But as we evolve and grow, that's the part that's going to be really exciting.